Hi, welcome back to Danny Harris Arts. If you've been following along, you know I've been working on an Atlantic salmon wood carving project. It was actually carved by a man who lives in Iceland. His name is Vagn and Vagn sent me the carving to be painted. And if you haven't seen part one yet, go check that out because I kind of go over the details about how we got started on this project together. Also in part one, I do all the airbrush work of laying out the base colors that get set up for this segment, which will be hand painting all the details. So I'm going to be painting the spots on, some fin ray detail. I got to finish out the mouth inside, and finally I'll be using some mica powders to scale tip all the scales, and that's going to give it its nice silvery iridescence that it has. Now I won't be doing this from beginning to end, the whole segment, because it's just going to be such a long drawn out process. I wouldn't be able to get it all in. So I will be showing techniques of how I'm doing it, and then I'll show progression shots as I go, maybe even some time lapse. Also later in the video, Vagn and his friend Bergþór have sent me a couple of video clips, and it's videos of Vagn talking about his experience and thought process on all this, and then Bergþór is going to interpret it for us, for those of us that don't speak Icelandic. So I hope you enjoy that part of the video as well. So if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them for me in the comment section below. And I'm going to get the camera turned around and get started. Okay, so I've got the all the base colors painted on, and I've got the fins detailed where I want them, and the inside of the mouth is done. I didn't do that on camera just because it's such a tight fit there. You really couldn't see what I'm doing, what it's doing, but I just stained some colors in there. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using these mica powders, and this is an extra brilliant rich gold, and this is a super bright aluminum, and I'll put a link in the description below to where I get these. And to apply it, I'm going to be using these micro Q-tip applicators. Here's a regular Q-tip, so kind of give you the idea of the size of them. And I get these from Matuska Taxidermy, and I'll put a link to these in there. I just buy bulk because I just throw them away when I get done with them. And I'm going to be using some mineral spirits, which I got some in this little pipette here, to mix in with this powder to make like a slurry or paint. So, and then I'll be using the applicators to apply it to each and every scale. I'm going to start out using this tiny one here on these smaller scales up front, and I'm going to work my way down as I go. I really haven't decided yet. I may work down to the lateral line here, because on top here they're more of a gold color, and then it fades into a silver as it gets down on the bottom. So I may just work down to the green line here, and then start over again with the silver coming down. But what I'll do is I don't want pure gold on here, so I'm gonna mix the gold and silver together, and I'll kind of go gauge it from that. But once I get all these tipped, then I'll go back and I'll spray it with a clear polyurethane to set the powder, because once the mineral spirits dries, it kind of reverts back to a powder. So and I may do it in, like, I may get to this part here, spray that, and so that I don't accidentally touch it or bump it or rub on it and smear it. So probably what I'm going to do is I'll do a couple inches at a time and spray it, and so that I don't accidentally smear it, because I've done that before. But I'll just work my way down, and then once I get them all done, I go back and start over and give them each one another coat. So basically I'm going to be tipping each one twice. So let me get the colors mixed up here. So I'm gonna take the gold, and it don't really take a whole lot of this, and I'm just dumping a little bit of gold there. It might be too much to start out with. And then I'm going to take the silver, and this is a mica powder. This is mica, and this is actually aluminum. I really should be wearing a dust mask when I get this up, because it's actual aluminum that's been ground up to a super fine powder. I can see it floating around in the air right now. So what I'll do is, and then I'm going to take this, let me get this down here so you can see it a little better. So what I'll do is I'll take this and just squirt a little bit of that in there. That's the, and I just mix it up. I might have put too much. Maybe not. And it makes this slurry like paint, thin paint. And it, like I say, when that mineral spirits dries, it reverts back to the powder. So let me get this all set up here, and I'm gonna do a little bit of experimenting and on a piece of scrap I've got over here, and then I'm gonna bring you up here and start actually putting some tips on there. All right, so I got this mixed up, and what I'm doing, as you can see right here, I'm just going down through here, and I'm gonna touch each and every little scale. And they're small down here, so I'm just gonna go slow and easy. So you can see why this is time consuming. And what I've got down here in the tray here, like when I quit for the night, this will dry up and overnight, so all I got to do is put a little more mineral spirits in it, and it turns right back into liquid. And these little tips last a long time. I can probably do most of the fish with one. I'm just doing little tiny, because the scales get really tiny down here. And I don't know, you probably can't see, this is a very bright metallic finish on this. Like I say, I'm not going to show all this from beginning to end, because you're not going to sit here and watch all this. So I'm going to do some time lapse as well as progression, and I'll stop and then come back when I'm like right here where you can see, and then I'll divide it up. And this is going to take, I'm guessing, 40 or 50 hours to do all these. See, I got a little too much right there, but it'll be all right. What you don't want is for it to run. I don't know if you can see it up here. You can see it down here. You can see where he burnt the scales in. So I can see where I need to tip. So he did a great job of keeping the scales in line in a fairly uniform pattern that they are. And on every fish it's different, and they can get a little screwy here and there on a real fish. But for the most part, they kind of follow a pattern. And as long as you follow that pattern, when you're burning the scales, your scale tipping will look correct. So he made my job easy by doing the scales right. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the gold down the back. That way I can keep, because if you look at the reference photos, it's almost a definite line where it turns from gold to silver. And there's just a little bit of in between there where it has some blues and reds in it. But like I say, after these dry and I get them all tipped, I got to come back and do them all again. Because once I put a clear coat on it to set them, it'll kind of kill some of that brightness. So to bring it back, you have to put another layer on it. I'm going to go ahead and paint over the black spots. I can still see them in between the scales. You probably can't see that on camera there, but let me do this. There's a spot right here, you can see it. But I'm going to go ahead and go over it. But I can still see where it is in there. So I'm going to go back later with a tiny brush and repaint those in. That way I get a good consistent coverage with the scales, and then I can fill in with the black for the spots. But you can see how slow this goes. And then once I've finished all of them, I got to go back over them, because I'll spray them and it'll dull it a little bit, and then I'll have to go back over them to make them pop again, and then they'll get another spray, so they'll dull down just a little bit again. But that's why I start off bright with it. That way it loses a little bit of the luster, but it's still there. So right now, to me, this looks too bright. But it needs to die down a little bit. And by spraying the fixative on it, the polyurethane, that'll kind of kill it down some. All right, I'm gonna get some more done here, and then I'll be back in a minute to show you a little progression. Well, a minute for you, an hour for me. While I'm doing this here, I'm going to play these videos of Vagn talking about his thoughts and process on this, and then I will have Bergþór give his interpretation of it, so those of us here in America can understand what he's saying.
Saddani Varis. Herðu, ástæðan fyrir að ég fyrir að gera hana fisk svo að ég beðin að ég fikk áskorun að gera 20 pund plus lax. Ég fór að fylgjast með hjá þér og Bó Vestmann hvernig þið gerir þetta, fór á stað og þetta gekk bara ljómandi vel. Ég nota ekki rafmagnsverkfæri, þannig að þetta sennilega búið að taka mig einhverja 600 klukkutíma. Ég hefði bara eina mynd að vinna eftir og var því að leita upplýsinga á netinu og YouTube, og þetta bara gengið ljómandi vel, og ég óendanlega þakklátur þér fyrir að vilja gera hreistur í járnin fyrir mig og vilja sprauta þetta. Þetta að vera alveg gríðarlega fallegt, og já, hérna eru verkfæri mín. Mikið af sandpapír. Þannig að ég gríðarlega sáttur við þetta og hlakka til að sjá meira.
Hi Danny, I'm going to be translating roughly what Vagn said to you on that video he made for you. He talks about that he got challenged to make this fish 20 pound plus. So he started doing some research, found videos by you and Bo Westman. Then he started carving, got a piece of wood and started carving. Spent about 600 hours doing it. And then he asked you to do the scale tips for him, which he is eternally grateful for, and is really happy how everything turned out, that you were willing to do the scale tips and do the paint job, which he loves. Then he shows you the tools that he used. No electrical tools or no power tools, just hand tools, that's it. And he shows you the pile of sandpaper he used. They're up to 2,000 grit. Some of the pieces of wood you see there are specially made by him to do specific jobs. He is very happy. He is ecstatic how the fish looks right now, and can't wait until it's done. He wants to see more, as he said in the end of the video, and is very happy that you are doing it for him, and eternally grateful, as I said before. Thank you.
Okay, so I've got all the scale tipping done on the top half. It's got just a tinge of gold in it. And so I'm going to start on the bottom here, and it will have, this will be all silver down here on the bottom. And then before I start this, I'm going to work on the gill plates, putting the metallic sheen on this. It'll come all the way up under the eye down to about right here. So I'm going to get started on that here. And then I'm going to go spray it all and set this. I've been spraying as I go. You know, I'll do a section, spray it, do a section, spray it. That way I don't accidentally bump it and smear it. Because it's a pain in the butt to clean off once you smear it. So anyway, I'm going to get started here and then go out and spray it. Okay, so I'm just taking this little bit bigger one here and just going through here and putting this silver down here. Tapping it in with my finger here. Light was putting too much of a glare on it. You couldn't really see the metallic look. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've got this Cryoline crystal clear that I'm going to spray on to set this powder. Okay, so now I'm going to start on the silver, tipping the silver scales. I'm probably going to cover these just a little bit more than I covered these up here. I wanted to see some of that green come through so you can see that definite color break from the green to the silver. So the silver ones will have a little bit more of a coverage to them. That makes sense. Let me do some here so you can see. So it'll be basically I'm going to try to cover the whole scale. Just to the edge. Then I'll kind of blend these with the ones that are a little golder above it, so that there's not a gold break to silver.
More of a gradual gradation.
So you kind of get the idea. I'm going to get rolling here, and then when I get a lot done, I'll come back and show you progress on it, just so you're not sitting here bored to death watching me do this. Just kind of give you the idea of what the process is and what I'm going through to do it. I've learned that there's kind of a happy medium in using the mineral spirits in this powder as far as how thick it needs to be. If it's too thin, it wants to run. If it's too thick, then it clumps up and it's hard to get off. So there's a happy medium, and I've kind of learned mixing it, what to look for, and that's just something you'd have to play with, experiment with, because it's hard to describe how to get that right mixture. See, if I hadn't sprayed these already, I'd already had my hand into them and it'd be all over me. And I don't think it shows on camera like it does in person, but this stuff maintains a pretty high metallic shine compared to some of the other powders I've used. I use a lot of Pearl X powders, and they're great, they work fine, but the golds I've used that I've tried in Pearl X and the silvers just don't have the same brilliance as silver and gold as this powder that I'm using here, this mica powder. And once I get it all done, I'll give it all a good spray, a good set, and then I'll come back over nearly every scale, and ones that were too thin or not shaped just right, then I'll come back and touch them up. So right now I'm about, with what you just saw here, I'm about 26 hours into putting these scales on. So I'm gonna turn the camera off and get rolling on this so I can concentrate on what I'm doing, and then when I get closer to the end here, I'll come back and show you the progress on it. Getting down here to these tiny scales now. It'll take me just a little touch to get them covered. Kind of reminds me of the rainbow trout I just finished. If y'all hadn't seen that video, go check it out. I'm going to stop right here for tonight, and I still have the bottom section down here to go that I'll start on in the morning. Alright, I got all the top 2/3 done. I've still got to do down here along the belly, and I'm gonna have to lay it flat to get to those because it's breaking my neck to look down there. But at this light, it's really showing the shine that it has. You can tell it's a little flatter down here, and this is, you see the line where I stopped. Okay, so I've had to lay it down, take it off the cradle and lay it down to get these belly scales here. And I'm not taking the scales all the way down to the belly. I'm only coming down to right here. You can see right here, and I've done it up here. And what I'm doing now is I'm taking a brush, and on these bottom scales I'm just kind of fading them in to the belly there. And the reason being is the belly scales are almost white and they lose the definition of the scales. So I'm fading them off. This will still be iridescent down here, but it just won't have the definition they do up here. And also as it starts rolling off, I'm only tipping like the back half of the scales. if I can get up here where you can see it. There we go, that's better. So I'm only tipping like the very back half of the scale. I'm not doing the whole thing. And that's because they start losing their definition and they don't have that bright iridescent that they do up here on the side. So that's all I'm doing down here is just going the back half of the scale. And then the belly scales get faded in with a dry brush. And then later I will be putting on this this pigment powder. This is a Pearl X, and this is a micro pearl, and it's basically the same. The paint that I painted that with was a Pearl X paint, so it has a little bit of an iridescence to it, but this will give it just a little bit more. But you'll still see the scales where they were burned in, but they just won't have the definition that they do up here. I hope I'm making sense on that. I wish I could see a salmon in person. I've never seen one in person. So all I've got to go off of is photos. But from what it looks like, it's typical of a fish for them to kind of fade off as they get to the belly. Alright, so we got all the scales sprayed and painted and they're set. So I am going to start putting these black spots in here, and I've got some that I did before, but I'm just going to kind of enhance them to make them a little bit more noticeable. I was looking at reference photos, and there were some that had, I mean, the spots were varied, but after talking with Vagn and Bergþór, the ones that they typically catch around there are not quite as spotted, so I'm gonna leave. I'm not going to put a heavy load of spots on here. Not as heavy as I had them. Alright. I'm going to send him a picture of that and see if that flies with him. Because I don't want to overdo it, because I know some of the ones they showed me were kind of sparsely spotted. And if this sets right, if this is where they want it, then I'm going to add some washes on the head here and start putting in the iridescent colors. Let that dry a little while, and I think she's going to be ready for polyurethane coat. Start shining her up. Okay, I've got everything done I think I'm going to do to it. And so what I'm going to do now, the final step, is I'm going to use this Minwax. It's a polyurethane. It's a crystal clear, a clear gloss. It's water based. And I'm just going to put several coats on it and give it a good luster, good shine. And then it'll be done. So let me start here. Nice wide brush. This will be kind of dull at first, but it dries crystal clear. And I'll put several coats on. I hear them cicadas. I don't know if you folks in Iceland have cicadas or not. You can hear them in the background. Now here in this temperature, this will dry pretty fast, but I'm going to help it along with the hairdryer here. This dries to the touch in about 15 or 20 minutes, but I'm going to let it set and cure for 24 to 48 hours before applying the second coat. Because even though it's dry to the touch, putting another coat on it kind of activates it and it smears and clots up, so I'm going to let it cure hard for 24 to 48 hours before adding the second coat. And I also go on the tail section here later and repaint it, because I found out that I was going by reference photos and it looked kind of brown. I don't know if you saw that on the tail or not, but Vagn said that they're more white than they are brown, so I'll repaint it later on, and you'll notice that later on in the video that it mysteriously looks white instead of this kind of pale yellow. Okay, that's going to be it for part 2 of this Atlantic salmon painting project. As you can see, I've got it all done here, and I've got 1 coat of clear on it, and I will be adding 2, maybe 3 more in steps. I'm going to wait 24, 48 hours in between each coat, just so that it's cured well before I add the next one. But when I get done, it'll have a nice deep luster to it, which is what he was looking for. It's pretty shiny now. You can tell that it's got a shine to it. But this has been a fun project. I really appreciate Vagn for trusting in me to do this, because this has been a first for me in 2 or 3 different ways. One is I've never painted an Atlantic salmon before. I've never painted a wood carving this big. And it's pretty cool too that this is my first international project that I've done. I don't know if I'll do any more, but I've done this one and it was fun to do. But I appreciate Vagn for sending in the videos that you saw of him talking about his thought process on this, and a little bit about what he went through to do it. And then our friend Bergþór, who also lives in Iceland, but he speaks English, and he's been instrumental in translating between us two, so that we can communicate and he can know what's going on and I can know what his thought process is. I've been sending him pictures all along, so it's not going to be a surprise to him. So far he likes it, and I can't wait to see it finished and hanging on his wall. He's going to be sending me pictures. He's got a beautiful piece of, I'm not really sure what kind of wood it is. It looks like a burlwood root. But he's going to be mounting it to that and sending me pictures. I'm going to be taking it off this board before I ship it back, and I'm going to take some professional shots of it. Some of you may or may not know I'm a professional photographer by trade, so I'm going to take it off of this and take some really nice shots of it And if you'd like, you can follow me on my Facebook page, Wild Impressions Wood Carving by Danny Harris. And I'm going to be posting all those pictures on there, and Vag's going to be sending me pictures, and I'll post those on there as well. So hop over there and follow me there if you'd like to see those. But if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them for me in the comment section below. And if you're new to the channel, I'd really appreciate it if you consider subscribing and give me a thumbs up if you like these videos. And I hope you'll follow me on my next project, which is going to be a bluegill brim. So I'll see you then.